Just got myself a 10-inch Misen carbon steel skillet. Let's put it through the paces. Okay, so first things first, quick little eyeball of this pan. I just got out of the box, just arrived. I'd never seen this before. This is another one of those direct consumer brands in which they sell from the website direct to customers. So I'm really interested in seeing some of these direct consumer brands because I get customers all the time that ask me, hey, I've seen this brand online, should I buy that? So I'm happy to make a recommendation to people. That's why I like to see this stuff because I want to be able to hey, yeah, that's a good deal. Buy that pan. It's a really great quality, good price, so on and so forth. That's why I get these. I review them so I can give people an honest review. So arrived the Misen. Right away, I had the box, didn't see the pan. I could tell there was either a couple of rocks in the box with the pan or the pan was exactly as I was hoping it was to be. And it's great. So it's a 3mm thick piece of carbon steel. I find the pan itself is a little bit simplistic looking. It doesn't really have any sex appeal when you compare it to something like a Matfur or a Mineral B. But really at the end of the day, who cares? If it's going to perform, that's great. It's got a really nice heavy weight to it. It feels strong and heavy in the hand. So right out of the gate, it makes me quite happy from what I'm used to in grabbing a pan of a carbon steel or really anything. I can feel that weight to it, and weight to me is quality. It's a really easy way to understand if I'm going to enjoy a pan is if it's heavy, I know it's going to do the job that I'm looking for cookware to do. So right away, it's looking great. So what I'm going to do here is follow along the instructions somewhat. They ship it with beeswax on it, which is excellent. So it comes out of the box with beeswax, protected, pan's in excellent shape. They suggest to put it into the oven to melt the wax off and put a sheet pan underneath of it. I think that I could probably treat this exactly the way as I do with my Dubai Mineral B, is hot running water, a little bit of a light scouring with a nylon scrubby, take a bunch of that off, and then get to work doing oven seasoning. So this has a silicone handle on it that it can come right off. It doesn't say specifically in instructions if you take it on or off. Silicone over time will start to dry in a very hot oven. So I'm gonna take this off. It doesn't say if I should or shouldn't. I'm just going to. I think that's good practice with silicone over time. Really neat in its instructions that I like, and it comes with a small amount of instructions. So far, the Made-in Blue Steel skillet has the very best instructions that I've seen from any brand anywhere. Misen does like everyone else, one little sheet. They've got decent instructions on their website, but what they say is that you should pre-season 4 to 7 times, which I think is great advice. What I find a lot of people are looking for the expectation that a pan like this is going to become nonstick quite quickly. That doesn't happen. You get a nice patina happening quite soon, but really nonstick comes 6 weeks, 2 months. It can take a while of specific cooking and particular care and maintenance to a pan like this to get it to a point to be nonstick. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna season this guy up. It's gonna take me quite a long time. I'm gonna go to probably 5 or 6, maybe even 7 coats of seasoning, and that is putting a thin coat of a beeswax paste on once I've taken the beeswax off. That sounds counterintuitive, but that's how it works. I'm gonna get those layers on, go through a full cycle, one full cycle in the oven. So I'm gonna go up to 475 degrees, 1 hour. Once it's coated, take it out, let it completely cool, and then do another full cycle, another application of the beeswax oil and into the oven. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that done, and then I'm going to use the Made-in pan, a Dubai Mineral B, and this pan, and we're gonna do the onion test that I've done in several other videos because I find that it's a nice, simple, easy way. Everybody seems to saute onions, and it's a nice result. So here I go. Okay, so I've done 5 full seasonings in the oven using the method in which was recommended in the instructions that came with the Misen pan. It's seasoned beautifully, looks great. I have no issues with how it's all worked so far. You know, it's a fresh seasoning. So I'm going to be putting this guy up against the Misen Blue Steel, which when I first tested the Misen, didn't do all that well comparatively to what my expectations were. It's kind of billed as a high quality carbon steel pan. It's a 2mm thick pan. The Misen is a 3mm thick pan. That's a big difference. And so, you know, you can even just feel the difference of them. So when you're trying to do the same thing, same heat, same duration, there's gonna be a difference. However, Misen sells this pan, markets it as a really high quality, as good or better than cast iron pan. To me, that set a very high expectation. I've always tried to treat it as a high quality pan and not anything lesser than. So that's why I'm gonna put it, you know, a lighter pan up against a heavier pan because of the way in which it's actually sold. It's marketed that way. Misen markets their pans just kind of standardly. It is just a very good quality, high quality, hardworking pan. And also against the Bayer Mineral B. So those 3 pan is what we're gonna do a very simple onion test. The same amount of onions, same amount of oil, same amount of duration, and just see what the end result is. Here we go. Okay, so we've preheated these pans here for a few minutes. They're at a 6, just above medium. I'm putting a 1/4 teaspoon of grapeseed oil in each of them. And then I'm going to wipe that grapeseed oil all around the pan in each of them. And get them ready for 1/2 cup of onions. All right, so 1/2 cup of onions. And now what we're gonna do, for anybody that is used to this channel, onions are my main test. I find that everybody cooks onions. Nobody, like there are people with a onion allergy, but for the most part, you know, an onion is something which a lot of people fry. And, you know, there's a lot of choices of things to make. I find onions are an easy one. You know, if they're overdone, onion done, it's easy. If they burn, it's easy to tell. So they're a good indicator of a good quality pan. Okay, I think we're coming to the end of our cooking time. We've been about 10 minutes or so. I'm gonna turn that right down. So first looks here, the Misen pan has browned a lot. There's quite a bit of sticking onto the surface. The onions themselves have stayed really nicely nonstick. So, you know, I'm curious how the buildup of the carbonization is gonna be when I go to clean it. So we'll see how much work that's gonna take when we start doing that. The Misen pan, it's got quite a bit more sticking. And the thing that I've got with the Misen, I've really been, you know, out of these 3 pans, this Misen pan has actually had the most seasoning. I've really been working this pan. And even in this process, we've got seasoning lifting. So you can see this space right here, it's gone gray. And it's like, I'm struggling with my Misen pan to like it. So we'll see how the taste is. And you know, call me biased, but this is the Bayer Mineral B. And you know, underneath there, you got a really nice, even surface. This is a brand new pan too. This is just being seasoned. So this has just had its first initial coating, just like the Misen pan. So these two are like fresh new. And if you use this in a different video, and like the results here are tremendous. Like the easy clean so that you can just see. There's a bit of buildup. There's just a lot more buildup in Misen pan. And like, is that a negative? Let's see how the cleanup. If it continues to build a good seasoning, that's where it matters. Visually, it just looks more stuck onto it than the debire. So, taste test. Okay, so simple taste test. We'll do small amount of onions in the debire. So, perfectly cooked, just like debire always does, exactly what I expect. You know, makes a really, really nice cooked onion. So the Misen pan. Yep. You know, yeah, no, it's very similar. There's not a massive amount of difference. Maybe a little bit more of texture around the smaller pieces, where it looks like the smaller pieces have cooked a little bit more flaky-like. But all in all, it's done well. So I'm getting the seasoning better on here. Tempered the heat a little bit here. I didn't cook maybe as long as I have in past videos, so things aren't overcooked in here. So the cooking results here are good. I'm fine with it. I'm just not loving the seasoning. So moving on to the Misen plan. So, interesting. A little bit more chewy pieces. So what that means is a little bit overcooking, a bit like the Misen pan. So I would say similar, a bit more juicy in the flavors, so not as dried. I'd say this is the driest one, where if you're talking about perfect, like the debire has done it perfectly, really happy with it. The Misen is the driest. There's a little bit more of bits, maybe it's the way in which I cut them, in the Misen, but a little bit drier. So, you know, it's interesting. I was expecting on the weight and feel that this was going to cook almost exactly like the debire. I find it interesting that it's got quite a lot more carbon buildup on the surface, and that it's a little drier in the way it's cooked. So it means that more thermal transfer, more drying out. It's still really good. I'm happy with it. It's totally possible. I would use that in cooking. I'm just being picky to try to give you really kind of how these are graded. So I would really say from the quality in which these are, is that there's a definite 1, 2, 3, where I really thought from the weight of these two that they were going to be a lot more similar. There's going to be more of a tie for 1 and 2, but the debire comes out on top really from the release and the evenness in the way in which it cooks, and the lack of buildup on the pan. That's like all those combinations really do it for me. You know, quite a bit more buildup on the pan, a little bit more drier in the way in which the onions are, but like small. And then, you know, the surface, you know, that's going to be problematic continually, trying to keep a surface going on this pan. That comes from cooking at a certain heat. It's just, whatever reason, it's just peeling from, I think, from a heat because of how thin it is. And I cook things at a, you know, not overly high heat. That was a 6. But, you know, that's how that one goes. So, you know, from the review of the Misen pan so far, totally possible. Quite happy with it. I'm still, let's look at how it cleans. If this cleaning is problematic, that's going to probably change my opinion. But from a cooking standpoint, you know, it's near as expected. I thought it was going to be a little bit more like the debire, but it's done great. So I'm happy. And so now we're going to move on to cleaning. Okay, so here we are, the surface of the mise en place. A little bit of carbon staining, but there's no texture there. The Misen pan that I continue to struggle with. I'm really trying to get a great seasoning, and it's just not working for me. And then the DeBuyer pan, which is looking absolutely fantastic. You know, they're all looking a little dry right now because the DeBuyer pan and the Misen pan are like brand new, and the seasoning still needs to harden and to build up. So you can see it's got some scouring marks in it, which is kind of normal as I'm building, because I'm really working hard to make sure that I'm not getting carbon buildup. I'm not letting carbon stay. I'm working the carbon down and then building up on top of it. Here we've got some staining, but you know, when I use my fingers, not feeling it, it's carbon staining and not so much carbon buildup. So, seasoning. Okay, so there was our test run with the Misen pan. You know, it's totally adequate. It's a nice weight. It worked well. You know, it marked a little bit more than I expected, but you know, those are just kind of staining on it. It's re-seasoned relatively well, and I think the season's going to build. So, you know, I'm fine with that. I think that's a decent pan. Now, compared to my favorite, the Mineral B. You know, it doesn't really seem to hold any water. The Mineral B, really, just the finish to the seasoning, the cook, the evenness was just brilliant. You know, I am very happy, of course, with Mineral B. Gone over it many times. But you know, the Misen pan for, you know, a reasonable amount of money is decent. The removable silicone handle works well, so this can be seasoned in the oven without a problem. You can put the heat-proof silicone into the oven, so if you want to oven cook, that's not a problem. It's got a really nice shape to the pan, which is decent. It's a little bit different, again, than the sharp edge of the Mineral B. So all in all, it's fine. It definitely is not going to replace my Mineral B in 1,000 years, but I think it's totally fine. You know, comparatively to the Misen, these are both direct-consumer brand pans. The Misen is a lighter pan. I don't expect it to work as well as a 3 mil compared to 2 mil. But I definitely find the seasoning to the Misen has been frustrating. This is, again, re-seasoned really well, but I just find it keeps peeling and peeling and peeling. Usually in seasoning, you take kind of one step back in cooking. You can kind of do a little bit of damage or some cleaning, and then re-seasoning 2 steps forward. So like you're always kind of getting a little bit of somewhere over time. My Misen pan, I'm just not able to get forward. I just keep going in this kind of loop of kind of crappiness, which is frustrating. I'm hoping to figure out how to get somewhere with it, because you know, it's a pan. I have it. I just don't want to use it, but it's just not really performing well. Where the Misen, I would say, is a much superior pan to the Misen in all ways. You know, I hands down would take that one any day of the week now that I know how well they both work. So, you know, as it stacks up, Misen, you know, I'm still not a fan. Misen is definitely passable. I would use it. I like it. Great weight, but it doesn't come close to the Mineral B. So, thank you very much. I hope you enjoy that. If you enjoy our videos, please subscribe. And if you have any questions, please throw them below. Thank you.